So tomorrow marks 3 years since Russia launched their full-scale invasion of Ukraine. And I remember very clearly where I was that night. I know Ali Velshi was just talking about this too. And you may remember where you were. I was sitting in Jake Sullivan's office in the West Wing, waiting for an update on whether the war had actually begun. Just weeks earlier, remember, the national security team in the Biden administration had made this decision to declassify information, including Russian plans to attack Ukraine, in order for the world to know what to expect and to kind of call them out. Point being, we knew it was Russia planning to illegally invade Ukraine. The world did, even before it started. But that night in February, it was clear something was happening on the ground, and we were waiting for updates from the military on what they were seeing, not knowing at the time how long Ukraine could hold Kyiv, how long Zelensky and his military could hold back the Russian forces. But they did hold Kyiv, and they have fought every single day since then. Now, 3 years later, that war has killed and wounded hundreds of thousands of soldiers and civilians and displaced far more. Cities have been destroyed. Ukrainian children have been kidnapped and trafficked by Russian authorities. And we've all watched it play out before our eyes. This is all important to remember, and I wanted to start here because we're all trying to digest what we saw happen this week. I mean, the current president of the United States railed against a man he called a dictator without elections, who he claimed should have never started this war. But he wasn't talking about Russian dictator Vladimir Putin. He was referring to Ukrainian President Zelensky. It didn't stop there. He also falsely claimed that Zelensky bamboozled the United States into helping him pay for the war, that he had a rock-bottom approval rating, he doesn't, and that he didn't even deserve a seat at the negotiating table to end a war in his own country. And he said all of that while continuing to praise Putin and parrot Kremlin talking points, as he's been doing for years. Now, obviously, this embrace of Russia is not new for Trump, but it has immense implications for America's moral authority in the world. And I also think it's important to talk about what's motivating all of this praise of Vladimir Putin. There are obviously a lot of theories. I'm not going to get into them all. But I think one of the reasons that's long been overlooked is this. If Trump can trick Americans into thinking Putin's way of doing things is acceptable, then maybe he can trick them into thinking everything he is doing is acceptable, too. I mean, if what Putin is doing in Russia is fine, and we definitely know Trump thinks it is, then what could be wrong with what Trump is doing in this country? What's wrong with empowering a handful of wealthy business leaders and giving them unprecedented influence? Or granting the richest man in the world free rein to do whatever he wants, like, say, threaten every federal employee to justify their work or resign? Or firing military generals who aren't sufficiently loyal to him? If Russian tactics are just the cost of doing business, then what's wrong with operating in an openly corrupt way? Like dropping charges against a certain New York City mayor in exchange for his obedience. What's wrong with installing sycophants like Kash Patel in positions of power, or bypassing Congress and defying court orders, or cracking down on our free press, like barring certain news outlets from official events? That stuff happens in Russia all the time. Or with threatening territorial expansion, like the nonstop talk about seizing Canada, Greenland, and the Panama Canal. And if Putin's way is the right way, what's wrong with the idea of staying in power beyond a second term?
Should I run again? You tell me.
I think I'm not allowed to run again. I'm not sure. Am I allowed to run again?
They say I can't run again. That's the expression. Sure. Then somebody said, I don't think you can. Oh.
He acts like he's joking there. But I mean, given all the context I just laid out, it's really obviously not that funny. Look, the point here is this. If Trump can justify Putin's behavior, then he can justify his own. But the problem for Trump is that's a pretty steep hill to climb, because the American people don't like Putin's way of doing things. I mean, take a look at a few polls out this week that kind of tell this story. One from Quinnipiac University that shows that 81% of American voters think the United States should not trust Vladimir Putin. And another from the Washington Post that shows that by a 17-point margin, Americans think Trump has exceeded his authority since taking office. So that's a majority of Americans in multiple polls telling us they don't want to be anything like Russia. And some lawmakers are starting to say that, too. In Ohio, a district that has voted Republican going back more than 40 years, Trump-endorsed Congressman Troy Balderson spoke out saying that Trump's orders are getting out of control. No kidding. In Alaska, Senator Lisa Murkowski said we have to stand up to the mass firings and efforts to withhold federal funding. And even when lawmakers don't really want to talk about this, they can't seem to get away from it. Like in Wisconsin, where constituents at a town hall carried signs with slogans like "Presidents are not kings" and demanded answers from Republican Congressman Scott Fitzgerald. And in Oregon, where Republican Congressman Cliff Bentz was met with booing and heckling from crowds, all frustrated over Trump's recent executive actions. And in Oklahoma, where Republican Kevin Hern tried to talk about the border and the deficit, but his constituents only wanted answers about Trump and Musk's erratic government cuts. And in a ruby red part of Georgia, where Republican Rich McCormick was peppered with questions from a very fired up crowd about Trump's power.
You don't think I'm going to stand up for you? Stand. So if you're going to just yell at me, that's not going to be an effective counter.
I'm going to bet we'll see a lot more of where that came from, because the more Trump mirrors the tactics of Putin, the more people don't like it. The more he leans into the behaviors of an all-powerful dictator, the more people push back. So he can try to rewrite history and paint Putin's actions as acceptable to justify his own actions. But it doesn't mean we have to let him. People don't seem to be out there.
All right, take a look at what Donald Trump posted on Truth Social this morning. Elon is doing a great job, but I would like to see him get more aggressive. Remember, we have a country to save, but ultimately to make it greater than ever before. MAGA. There are so many things wrong with what he said, but let's start with Elon Musk is doing a great job, for starters. Trump and Musk have been boasting about Doge's supposed success with all their cost cutting across the U.S. government. Well, this week, Doge is bragging about saving $55 billion. But according to analysis from multiple news organizations, that number is wildly inflated. Doge claims it saved $7.2 billion by canceling over 1,000 contracts. But when the Washington Post looked closer, they found something ridiculous. Many of those contracts were already finished and fully paid. You can't cancel something that's already over. Politico found even more glaring issues. Some single pots of money were counted multiple times, inflating savings by 2, 3, or even 4 times. And Doge has already had to correct its website twice. Once around the time New York Times caught an $8 million contract falsely listed as $8 billion. And again, after it removed a $655 million contract that had been counted 3 separate times. So much for all of Musk's claims that Doge provides full transparency. And that takes us to another glaring issue. Trump and his White House cannot agree on whether Musk is the one actually running Doge. When Trump signed the executive order on day one, he didn't name a leader, just some administrator. On Monday, the White House tried to clear things up with a legal filing that read, Mr. Musk is not the U.S. Doge Service Administrator. But Trump keeps contradicting his own administration, and many Republicans are following his cues and also crediting Musk, opening themselves up to some legal scrutiny. All of this controversy did not stop Elon Musk from stealing the spotlight at CPAC on Thursday with this stunt.
This is the chainsaw for bureaucracy. Chainsaw!
That cringe-worthy moment comes from someone who's officially not part of the U.S. government. And worst of all, he is making a complete mockery of the damage his cost-cutting has actually done to everyday Americans in the real world. Remember, the second part of Trump's post this morning, we have a country to save, but ultimately to make it greater than ever before. Thousands of federal workers have been fired in the past few weeks and will now be seeking unemployment benefits. And hours ago, Musk tweeted that all federal employees will receive an email asking what they got done last week. In a statement, a spokesperson for the Office of Personnel Management said this summary will be due by the end of the workday on Monday, and agencies will determine next steps. And this comes after Trump gutted the IRS in the middle of tax season, which will likely delay refunds for millions of Americans, many of whom rely on that check as their biggest payout of the year. At the USDA, crucial bird flu response teams were wiped out. Now the Trump administration is scrambling to rehire them. American farmers are also feeling the fallout as key USDA projects have been derailed. The CDC even cut a healthcare program for 9/11 first responders. The Trump administration reversed it after Republicans pushed back. And DOGE isn't stopping here. In fact, far from it. The department is also going after Medicare and Medicaid. Some Americans are already seeing their medical costs spike. Then there's the Pentagon, where thousands will soon be laid off, a planned mass purge which will make America undoubtedly less safe. The bottom line is this. Elon Musk is getting praised by Donald Trump for decisions that are actively making people's lives worse. And he is treating it all like a game, tossing darts every day and just kind of seeing what sticks out there. But the mistakes, the damage, the backtracking, it's all going to catch up with Trump eventually, because a lot of the people suffering from these choices live in the same states that ultimately put him in the White House. Joining me now is comedian Jason Selvig, one half of the comedy duo The Good Liars, Dino Badullo, MSNBC daily columnist and host of SiriusXM's The Dino Badullo Show, and Julia Roginski, a Democratic strategist and author of the Salty Politics newsletter on Substack. Julia, I'll start with you. Musk posted on X that federal employees will receive an email asking what they got done last week. He threatened that failure to respond would be taken as a resignation. And shortly after that, NBC News reported those emails started going out already with softer language than what Musk used. What is the thinking here after all the bad press he has received for firing the wrong people?
I don't think he cares. I don't think Trump cares. And frankly, I think all of us who are making a big deal out of this are kind of misdirecting our energy, because whatever they attest publicly, whatever they say before a judge, all of that is irrelevant, because Trump will do whatever he wants to do, and Elon Musk will do whatever he wants to do. The only solution to this is an election in 2 years. Short of that, there's really nothing more to be done other than our leaders finally saying very strongly that they will not cooperate one iota with any Republican who allows this to go forward. And that means no votes for the budget, no votes for the debt ceiling hike, nothing until this ends. But if we're sitting here thinking that any bad publicity from any of us is going to somehow deter Donald Trump or Elon Musk, all they're going to tell us is to cry harder. All they're going to tell us is that they're doing this to own the libs, or whatever other stupid phrase that they all thrive on, because they're basically 12-year-old boys who like taunting thinking adults. And that's never going to change until they're voted out of office.
Let me just follow up on that really quickly, Julie. So where should our attention be right now? Is it just simply looking ahead for 2 years and putting the pressure on Democrats to step up to the plate, or what should it be focused on?
Our attention, of course, should be to expose all of this. Our attention should be to speak to Trump voters who are going to feel this very, very viscerally, very shortly, if they haven't already, and explain to them that this is the hands of a president they helped to elect. They should maybe rethink that decision the next time an election rolls around. But most importantly, what we should do is, as not us, but put pressure on our leaders in Washington not to cooperate one iota with the Republican Party on the Hill until they, who are in the majority, put a stop to this. If they're going to acquiesce to this behavior, if they're going to acquiesce to harming their constituents and the constituents of Democratic representatives and senators, then there's no way in hell that we should ever cooperate with them on any single priority that they have, including the budget that's coming up in the next several weeks.
All right, Jason, let me get your thoughts on what we saw on over the last couple of days of CPAC. I was going to say like on one specific day, but I'll let you kind of take your pick about it. I mean, what do you make of like Elon Musk with the chainsaw, the president of Argentina, who somehow spends a lot of time in America for a foreign leader who's running his own country? I wonder if the constituents in Argentina are wondering where their president is, why he's always like popping up. It's like an inauguration one day, Mar-a-Lago the other day, CPAC the other. What do you make of it all?
Well, I think when Elon Musk went on stage and took the chainsaw and yelled, "Chainsaw, yeah!" I think that was the moment that Elon Musk truly became president. Honestly, I just want to say this season of America sucks. Like, the main storyline is the richest man on earth, a guy who wants to put implants in people's brain, is in the White House with the president, who is a former competition reality show host. Like, America feels like it's jumping the shark a little bit. But Elon Musk, he's spent $300 million to help Trump get elected. You think he could buy an actual title? I think Trump said he was just a patriot today. And just to go in the numbers here, I looked at this earlier. He spent $300 million to help elect Donald Trump. Elon Musk has $390 billion. So $300 million is less than 0.01% of his net worth. And if you're a Trump supporter and your net worth is $100,000 and you gave Trump $10, you would have given more of your net worth than Elon Musk did. So Elon Musk is there at CPAC, and we were just there yesterday filming. The people there loved him. They were doing, like, you're watching that, we're watching this, we're like, this is really cringe, this is hard to watch. People are doing impressions of the chainsaw like it's the coolest thing in the world now. So it didn't turn anybody off at CPAC for sure.
So that's I mean, joking aside, that's an important point, right? Because now this country is so siloed off in terms of information. So if I was to pick up on what Julie was saying and what Jason is saying, and we're talking about what Elon Musk is doing with Doge, the numbers, as we just kind of ran through and as the reporters are diligently doing, they don't add up. The numbers of what he's saying and boasting about, it's not true, it's not accurate. That doesn't matter, though, to his constituents because they're hearing it from their side, and their side doesn't fact check it. Their side is not trying to hold Elon Musk accountable or saying, hey, Doge is not actually doing what it claims to be doing. And yet we're trying to put a spotlight on it and say to the American people, wait, hold on. This may in principle sound good. Everybody wants to cut waste. Everybody wants to cut fraud. That's not what Doge is doing.
It's not. And first of all, by the way, the chainsaw, how did the Argentinian president get that into the country? Did he check that on the flight? Was that carry-on luggage? I can't bring any kind of weapon. He's got a chainsaw. He's the president of Argentina.
I want to see you try to get on a plane with a chainsaw. Let's see how that ends for you.
He's got a chainsaw. We need to check. Yeah, I got to declare. I got a chainsaw. Elon Musk talks about transparency. He's wearing sunglasses inside so you can't see his eyes. How about transparency begins with taking your sunglasses off so we can see how much ketamine that you have ingested? That's what's running Doge, industrial strength ketamine. And I love he wants everyone who works for the government to send him an email. There are 3 million government employees. I hope Elon Musk has a big enough inbox or his young guys who can go through that to say what they did for the last week. They're going to lie. Look at Donald Trump this week, Wednesday. Remember the lie about USAID and $50 million, condoms, going to Gaza? We talked about it. This week, Trump repeated that and literally upped it in his speech, saying $100 million went to Hamas for condoms. I'm not exaggerating. That's not a joke. He literally said that Wednesday at the event in Miami when trying to undermine Social Security. So me, the bigger concern now is they're using that playbook of lies to justify cuts everywhere, and they're coming for Social Security. People should see that. Because Donald Trump and Elon Musk talked about 20 million people who are dead on Social Security. You don't need an act of Congress to have Trump's Social Security administrator go, oh, millions are fraud. And then the burden's on you to go hire a lawyer to get your Social Security benefits. And they know that. They're up to no good. And that's why you're having the reactions at the town halls. They're yelling at Republicans. That's a great thing.
And just to be clear, I don't know why Elon Musk was wearing sunglasses indoors. I mean, that's maybe your theory, but I have no reason to believe that it was like, you're saying it. I don't know what.
Take the glasses off, Elon. You want to be transparent? Let's see your eyes.
Okay, but that's a valid question.
You're
just asking the question.
I'm not saying he's not.
Just asking questions. Yeah,
just
like
asking
Trump on Fox
questions.
and Friends talking about Obama's birth certificate.
We're going to tax me for asking questions.
In a matter of weeks, we have restored America's pride, America's confidence, and America's spirit. According to a brand new poll from Rasmussen, the number of Americans who believe we are on the right track now exceeds the number who think we're on the wrong track. This is the first time in 23 years. That's hard to believe.
Yeah, that was President Trump speaking at CPAC earlier today. He's right that Rasmussen's data is hard to believe. Much more reliable polls released this week show Trump's popularity is tanking. Both the CNN and the Washington Post Ipsos polls found Trump's approval rating is in the mid-40s, a little more than a month into his second stint in the White House. Joining me now, Andrew Bates, former White House senior deputy press secretary in the Biden administration, and Jennifer Horn, former New Hampshire Republican Party chair, co-founder of the Lincoln Project, and host of Is It Just Me or Have We All Lost Our Minds podcast. Thank you both very much for coming to the Saturday show. So, Andrew, I know that your big thing is President Trump promised that prices would go down, inflation would go down on day one. And yet that has not happened. And in fact, the CNN poll that we were just mentioning also finds that a majority of U.S. adults want him to do more. 62% say prices haven't been reduced far enough. Gee, Andrew, why haven't prices come down?
It's a very good point. The thing is, he told everyone in the country that on day one, inflation would end. And we are well past that. In fact, under him, it's going up. And you're talking about polls. His own pollster has done data on swing districts in the House, and they show that a majority of people are very concerned about their own financial situation. And that's because the everyday costs that he promised to lower are going up on account of his tariff taxes. He is actively raising costs himself so that he can turn around and use the revenue from those tariff taxes to cut taxes for the rich. And those tariff taxes are why consumer sentiment, which I would argue is the most important form of poll we have right now, keeps plunging because people are feeling that. They are wondering, where the hell are the 2019 costs that I was promised? I just see you cutting taxes for the wealthy.
You know, and to your point, Reuters reports that consumer confidence hit a 7-month low in February over fears of inflation and reciprocal tariffs. Jennifer, are you hearing rumblings there in the great state of New Hampshire about the fact that prices haven't come down, in fact, inflation's going up, or even about the wrecking ball that the president and First Buddy Elon Musk are heaving through the federal government?
Yeah, well, at the moment, I'm down here. We're in the great state of Florida under the leadership of Ron DeSantis. And I'm hearing a lot of rumblings amongst the folks down here about the lack of action, the lack of progress on promises made by this president. You know, what we see happening with Elon Musk and the authority that he is being given by this president, the actions that he's taken, the recklessness and the dangerous approach that he is taking with his so-called, you know, efforts to eliminate waste and corruption in this country is so concerning. It is so highly concerning. And as you showed that clip right now of, you know, the mute president nodding his chin up and down like a bobblehead at a ballpark, for God's sake, while Elon Musk is taking charge of this government, talking to the press from the Oval Office, people are being hurt and our country is being put in real danger. Whether you're looking at the firing of folks working, you know, on nuclear weapons or, you know, the Department of Education, Health and Human Services, all of these different things that are happening. It's dangerous, and I think that the American people are starting to notice it.
Jennifer, let me stick with you because I want to play for everyone. I know you're in Florida, but you're the former chair of the New Hampshire Republican Party, and there was a very interesting back and forth between President Trump and the governor of Maine. Watch this.
Is Maine here, the governor of Maine? Are you not going to comply with it?
I'm complying with state and federal law.
Well, we are the federal law. Well, you better do it. You better do it because you're not going to get any federal funding at all if you don't. And by the way, your population, even though it's somewhat liberal, although I did very well there, your population doesn't want men playing in women's sports. So you better comply because otherwise you're not getting any federal funding. Every state, good. I'll see you in court. I look forward to that. That should be a real easy one. And enjoy your life after governor because I don't think you'll be in elected politics.
And just to be clear, that was the president and the governor of Maine going back and forth over what he says is the governor ignoring his executive order on transgender athletes. But Jennifer, you are fired up over that exchange. Why?
Well, for a lot of reasons. First of all, we know that the one thing Donald Trump hates most in the world is a strong woman leader who doesn't back down and has the nerve to question him, especially in public. But more importantly, that exchange is a crystal clear snapshot of what is so dangerous about Donald Trump right now when he says, we are the federal law. We are not. Donald Trump is not. But he is functioning and leading, trying to lead as if he is. And the idea that what anyone that the executive office, that the president of the United States has unguarded, unlimited authority or decision-making power without guardrail and that he can declare himself that he is the federal government. That is the absolute definition of a dictator. And I think it is so important for people to understand this, because we are in a moment right now where the American people we are at a moment where we are standing at a precipice. And it is we, the people, who are going to decide whether or not the President of the United States of America leads us into the greatest, most tragic collapse of democracy in the history of man, or are the American people going to come together and lift it up and protect us and hold him and the Republican Party accountable?
And Andrew, we've got less than 30 seconds left, but as much as people focused in on the see you in court and the back and forth, as Jennifer highlighted, to me, we are the federal law statement from President Trump was the most alarming thing out of that exchange.
Yeah, I think this is someone who's desperate to show that he's in charge. I don't know if he has the energy to do this job, but maybe that's why he's basically letting Elon Musk be the acting president. But I think you see him lashing out. You see him trying to take as much power unto himself as he possibly can. He's even letting the richest person in the world rummage through our Social Security information, our IRS data. So I don't know if he feels secure about his role in this government or not, but it's obvious that a lot of Americans are getting more and more concerned, especially when you see the backlash at these constituent town halls.
You know, under any other circumstance, what Elon Musk is doing would be considered hacking. You know, getting people's information and rifling through bank accounts. That's a whole other discussion. Andrew Bates, Jennifer Horn, thank you both very much for coming to the Saturday show.
And joining me right now, we have Democratic Congressman from Pennsylvania, Brendan Boyle. He is the ranking member on the House Budget Committee and a member of the House Ways and Means Committee. Congressman, it's awfully good to see you. So let's begin with the email directive that Elon Musk has sent to government employees listing what they accomplished last week. Is this appropriate? Is it even legal to demand this by the way, this is Donald Trump's special advisor.
Yeah, well, first, I have to say, I think there's some Republican colleagues of mine in Congress who are breathing a sigh of relief that they didn't get that email from Elon Musk, because I don't think there's anywhere close they could get to 5. But, you know, the question of legality is pretty clear cut. Elon Musk is not a government official. He is the wealthiest person in the world. He is the richest person actually in the history of the world by far. But he is someone that has this unofficial title as advisor. There is no, I keep saying this until I'm blue in the face, there is no such thing as the Department of Government Efficiency. The fact that everyone keeps going around pretending like this exists doesn't actually wish it into creation. You have to create by law, by an act of Congress, if you are going to have a department. So instead, what is happening is he is acting lawlessly at the president's direction, or at least allowance, to show up agency by agency on an ad hoc basis, firing people. It is wrong. It is illegal. And that's why every single court that has so far ruled on this matter, whether the judge is a Republican appointee or a Democratic nominee, each and every one of them has actually ruled against what Musk is doing.
So hang on. If it's all illegal because this is being done, it's not even an official department in our government. Sowing chaos, absolutely, that's underway right now. But then what? For reversing it, more chaos? I mean, does this just get caught up in the courts? Does it end up reverting to what it was before they started cutting, ultimately?
And of course, while that is being litigated, it takes some time, and there's a real cost to that chaos. In my view, there needs to be an all-consuming strategy. Yes, that means in the courts, but that also means legislatively that we Democrats in Congress, even though we're in the minority in the House and in the Senate, our votes matter, and certainly they will need our votes pretty soon here when it comes to the March 14th deadline. And then finally, there is a role for ordinary citizens to play. You have seen it really over the last 7 to 10 days, where angry citizens are showing up at town hall after town hall throughout this country in order to voice their displeasure. That too can have an influence Let's not forget, 8 years ago at this moment, everyone was predicting that the Affordable Care Act would be done away with. Republicans had a trifecta. They campaigned on getting rid of it. Everyone thought it was dead. But what happened? So many citizens became active over the course of that 6-7 months in the first half of 2017. They were able to influence enough members of Congress that they were able to save the Affordable Care Act. And sure enough, it's still alive today.
Let's talk about the Trump-supported House budget, which is up for a vote this week. Major cuts to Medicaid and food assistance. They are likely included as a way to offset the estimated $4.5 trillion in tax cuts that are in the plan. You're a ranking member of the House Budget Committee. Does this budget benefit the majority of Americans?
That is the easiest question you have ever asked me. The easy answer, very simply, is no. We had a 12-hour voting meeting last Thursday in the Budget Committee. Democrats on my side, we did not give an inch because we wanted to expose exactly what is in that budget plan. It includes, at the very top line, $880 billion of cuts to Medicaid, which would be the largest in American history, with all of that money being diverted to tax cuts for the richest 1%. In addition, I referenced the Affordable Care Act earlier. There are additional cuts to the tunes of hundreds of billions of dollars to other health programs as well, such as the ACA, in addition to other cuts. So I think it's pretty clear the American people, when they find out about this, will be absolutely aghast that instead of Donald Trump focusing on getting costs lower for the American people, instead, yet again, the Republican agenda is cutting important programs like Medicaid so they can divert the money to the richest 1%.
So that means shortly before, when Donald Trump endorsed the House bill, he said in an interview that he would love and cherish Medicaid. I take it you don't believe him.
Yeah, I don't think this is the first time Donald Trump has promised to love and cherish someone or something and then has immediately cheated on that commitment. And he is doing it again, literally just hours after he said that he would love and cherish Medicaid. It's a total lie. It's a sham. And we will have a vote on Tuesday on the House floor. I encourage folks to watch that debate. Me and my colleagues will be talking even more about what is in this awful budget, including and especially the biggest cuts to Medicaid in American history.
So in terms of that vote Tuesday, it's only going to take 3 no votes from House Republicans to squash this budget, assuming all Democrats vote no. NBC tracked the Republican-held districts with the highest share of Medicaid recipients and those households that are receiving food assistance. Are you working to convince any of these Republicans to vote no? And I'm going to say other than Speaker Johnson, who is trying to toe the Trump line, but is in those top 10 categories.
Yeah, so at the moment right now, the House is 218 to 215. So that means we only need 2 House Republicans to join with Democrats, and we will be able to kill these extreme cuts to Medicaid once and for all. And I have to say, I have real optimism. I think that any House Republican, especially those in swing districts, who votes for this extreme budget will be signing their political death warrant come next November at the polls. So I think that we have a real shot to stop this in its tracks. Either way, this is going to be an incredibly close vote where literally every single vote matters.
So the Senate group blueprint, though, it did not include any Trump tax cuts. So how do you reconcile that? And what if the needed Republicans agree that the cuts go too far? Is there room for negotiation on a budget to try to win bipartisan support?
So the Senate plan is essentially less than 1/10 of the House Republican plan. The House Republican plan includes all of Trump's desires and wishes in terms of his full agenda. The Senate plan has been called a skinny plan because it just includes a few $100 billion more in terms of border spending and defense spending and some provisions for energy. So if they end up going down the Senate route, essentially that would be them throwing in the towel because they couldn't get their extreme Medicaid cuts and their massive trillions of dollars worth of tax cuts for the richest 1% through the House of Representatives. I would say look at the Senate plan as their plan B if their House plan fails this week.
I'm curious, given the huge layoffs across the federal workforce over this past month, has that been factored into the budget calculations?
It hasn't, but, I do want to say something about that. As someone who represents the Philadelphia area, we just suddenly on Thursday had 400 mostly middle-class citizens who live in and around my city show up for work and find out that they were being laid off. They received a letter saying it was because of poor performance. Some of them only had exemplary performance reviews. Some of them had never even had a performance review. And for this to happen, these were IRS employees, at the height of tax season is completely insane. It will hurt not just those hundreds of employees in my district who have been impacted, but it will also hurt any citizen and any constituent of mine who will be calling the 1-800 IRS customer service number for help over the next 2 months. I'm going to be doing an event on Monday morning down by Independence Hall. We're getting ready for the big 250th anniversary of our country next year, a massive celebration. Well, this dodgy Doge, whatever Musk calls it, they went ahead and fired a bunch of National Park Service workers that we need at Independence Hall is already understaffed. So they're making a bad situation worse. So this is having an impact in my community specifically, but really throughout the country. People are going to be feeling the pain if they haven't already.
Yeah, I mean, tax season. I'm actually going to talk with a recently fired National Park worker in the next hour and just get her take on that. But it's all interesting, and I'm glad to talk with you about it. And I know I'll have you back again, Brendan Boyle, very soon. Thank you so much.